Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look at the May Melee North America bracket. I'm going to give you all my thoughts, my predictions on it, and what I think is going to happen. So there's two brackets, of course. There's North America and Asia. Today I'm going to break down North America. Tomorrow I'll break down Asia. For the North America one, I figured I would go on the wonderful Solomon.io. Their bracket creator. Solomon does a lot of good work. If you want to check out this website, it'll be linked in the description down below, so you can check it all out for yourself. But I wanted to do it this way because there's a lot of weirdness with the bracket. Obviously, it's all about predictions, and the easiest way to do that is just to go through here and manually do it so I can explain it all to you as we go along. The Asia one I will do, as I said, tomorrow, and it'll be more streamlined and traditional the way I do it normally. You'll see the whole bracket because the bracket is already preset. We already know who's going to play who and who their next opponents would be. In North America, we don't have that, so it's a little different. As you can see, there are 4 or 5 rounds. There's the qualification round, then the knockouts, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. So we're going to start with the qualification game, and we'll make our way over to the finals. So we're going to start with the Toronto Defiance against the Vancouver Titans. The battle for Canada taking place as the battle between the bottom 2 teams in the month of May for North America. Now, I think this match is really easy to predict, and a lot of people are going to say that. I don't see the Titans winning this game. So, straight up, I'm picking the Defiant. I think the Defiant are better. I think they're actually one of the... They're a team who's better than I think their record suggests. I think they've looked better recently. They've had some tough opponents, unfortunately, but they went to 5 against the Valiant. They almost went to 5 against the Shock, and probably should have gone to 5 against the Shock if they didn't make a, big play on the side of the Shock. They looked pretty good against the Gladiators, so they've had some good performances recently that I think have kind of changed the narrative around this team as a team who's looking on the up, and I think that is something to certainly praise for this team. I think that they are a challenging pick for most of these teams here on this side of the bracket. Assuming they move on, which I think they should. But that's a good matchup for them. I think they should win that one pretty easily. As we move on to the knockouts round, it gets interesting. As the Paris Eternal, as the number 5 seed, get the first pick of their opponents. So they get to choose between the winner of the Defiant versus the Titans, as well as the Outlaws, the Justice, and the Uprising. Now, I think the Paris Eternal should, no matter what happens in the Defiant versus Titans game, pick either the Outlaws, Justice, or Uprising. And the reason why, which is a little ironic now that you're getting this video on Thursday, but the Eternal, when they locked in the 5 seed, knew exactly that they had the ability to pick from any of those teams once the week's matches had concluded, right? Which meant that they had the ability to prep for the entire week for a team that they knew would be around, right? They knew at the end of the day Sunday that they would have to pick between the Outlaws, Justice, or the Uprising. Those 3 were guaranteed. So why would you not pick one of those teams when you are the only team that knows for a fact that you guarantee yourselves one of those 3 teams? You can guarantee that you're going to play one of those teams. And you can guarantee specifically which one you play. So no matter what happens with the Defiant and the Titans, even if the Titans pull up the miracle upset, right? Don't pick them. Pick a team that you know you could have prepped for an entire week, where the other teams in that area can't have done that. And that really just comes down to me between the Justice and the Uprising. I don't think you pick the Outlaws, and the Outlaws, though they have their own problems, I think that they have looked overall better than the Justice and the Uprising. It's hard to say for sure. With the Uprising, you have a team who's coming off their first win in a long time against a pretty good team versus a team in the Justice who have 2 new players playing on very high ping, but we're talking about really good players here in Stitch and Janu. But they're playing on 200 ping. You know that you can exploit those 2 players and their lack of stable connection, and you can probably beat them. But at the same time, they're players who are going to have an extra week under their belt playing with this team and adjusting to it and getting used to it. Maybe that's not the option you want to go with. I think they're going to pick one of those two teams. I feel very confident about that. I personally think they should pick the Uprising. I think the Uprising are the weaker team. I think the Uprising are the easier team to look into. They just won a match for the first time in a long time, which means you know exactly what they won doing. You know exactly what their strength is on that roster, and you can exploit it much more easily. So I think they should and will pick the Uprising. For the Reign, you pick the Justice. There's no reason not to. I think the Justice are the next weakest team there, and I think that you can beat them easily, and I think you take the easiest matchup. Gladiators, you do the same thing. The question with that is, well, is the Outlaws or the Defiant the easier matchup? I think that the Defiant overall have been impressive recently, despite their record. They've had some good results. They had a good result against the Shock, pretty good result against the Gladiators themselves. Came very close against the Valiant. The Outlaws have not had good results recently. Their only win was against the Vancouver Titans, and they didn't even have a main tank playing, right? For the Gladiators, you know you can win the tank matchup, especially the main tank matchup, if they're running Hydration. Even if they're running Muma, you know you can win that. So I think you pick the Outlaws. I think there's a lot more question marks around the Outlaws. I think they have to find a main tank player that they feel confident in. For the Gladiators, you're going to exploit that pretty easily. I think that is the pick there as the Outlaws. For the Fuel, that leaves them with the Defiant. I don't expect any major upsets that round. The only one I can really see is Defiant against Fuel, and maybe Outlaws over Gladiators, but even then I'm stretching. I think this one's possible, though I don't think it'll happen. I think Eternal, Reign, Gladiators, and Fuel all move on to the quarterfinals, but like I said, this is the one to watch out for that could potentially be an upset. Shock, you get first pick. That's an easy pick, in my opinion. You pick the Gladiators. I don't think you pick anybody else. I don't think they look very good right now. I think you can beat them easily if you're the Shock. I think you pick the Gladiators every time. For the Mayhem, we know their philosophy is going to be pick the weakest team available. I think the weakest team available of these four is the Fuel. The Reign have struggled recently. I still think they're a better team than the Fuel. The Fuel, they are carried by their DPS. I think the Mayhem have very good DPS as well, ones that match up pretty well against what the Fuel have. So I think you can feel confident going into a matchup against the Fuel when you have, in my opinion, the better tank line and better support line and a DPS lineup that can hold its own against the strength of the Fuel with Doha and Decay. So I think the Mayhem should pick the Fuel if they are the options available to them, and I think that that would be the best possible matchup for them. For the Fusion, the only choice is whoever isn't the Paris Eternal. That is your choice. If you're the Fusion, you don't play the Paris Eternal. The Paris Eternal have beaten you. They're the only team that's beaten you so far this season. Yes, you've beaten them twice, but every time went to map 5. You do not pick the Paris Eternal for the Philadelphia Fusion. Easiest decision of their lives. That leaves the LA Valiant to face off against the Paris Eternal. For this one, technically I think there will be an upset, but I don't think it's really an upset because I don't think they're the worst team. I think the Shock win. I think the Eternal win. I think the Fusion win. I think the Mayhem win. I think the Valiant have looked pretty good so far in May, but they didn't really play anybody good. They played Boston. They played Atlanta, which was a decently impressive win, though they had to reverse sweep for that one. And they beat the Defiant in a pretty close series. So they did not look dominant by any means, and they are not better than Paris. Paris is a very good team. I think Paris should win this one because I think Paris is a very good team. They're a very good squad, and there's not a lot that I think is really struggling on that team. So I think that's an easy one for them. This is a matchup that I'm almost positive will happen because the Shock, Fusion, and Mayhem would be crazy to pick the Eternal. Even though the Mayhem did beat the Eternal, I still don't think you pick them. Moving into the semifinals, one of the easiest matches to predict is Fusion versus Mayhem. I like the Mayhem a lot. I think they've improved a ton. They don't have great results. They have that one win against the Eternal, which is a good win. But they've only done it once. They've only played them the one time. I need to see more results out of them. They haven't performed against the Fusion. They haven't performed against the Reign. They haven't performed against New York. They lost all 3 of those teams. I think they're improving. I don't think they're good enough to beat the Fusion yet. Shock versus Eternal is where it gets interesting because I think the Shock are the best team in this matchup, right? They're the better team. They've been good so far this season. They've been great so far this season. They only have the 2 losses that they suffered early in the season. The Eternal are 7-5. They have a record that I think is worse than what their performances have shown. But overall, a good team that have done well despite the fact that they don't have the strongest roster. And I think as we move on further, as Sparkle becomes eligible at the end of this month, hopefully XE is able to return to this team sometime soon. We see the roster at full strength, what they actually believe is their best roster. I think this is a team who will get even better. But I don't think that they are right now good enough to beat the Shock. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think they can beat the Shock. I think the Eternal are good enough to get the upset, but I'm not expecting it. Right? It would be unexpected if the Eternal beat the Shock. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the Eternal have shown the ability to do that, but I don't think it will happen. But I think that's a very good matchup. But I'm not going to pick the Eternal, even though I think that they are a good team, partly because I really want to see a Shock Fusion final. The only way these two teams meet is in a final. And I want it because I think it is the matchup of North America, right? Who is better between the Shock and the Fusion? That is the real question, and it is the one that I have been struggling with for weeks. Most people right now are high on the Shock, and the majority of people think the Shock are the best team in North America. And I think it's an understandable position to be in, right? They're the defending champions. They've looked very, very good. They look comfortable in many metas, and they have some of the best players in the league at various positions. Choi Hyobin is one of the best, if not the best, flex tank in the league. They brought in Twilight, who's one of the best flex supports in the league. They have Striker, one of the best DPS players in the league. A lot of really good players. Moth, incredible. The Fusion have a lot of newcomers, or just players who maybe are new to the system, rookies and newcomers to this team who don't have the history and the pedigree of being with the Fusion forever, but have been around. Ivy was with the Defiant last season. Funny Astro was with the Reign last season. Fury, of course, a Grand Finals champion with the London Spitfire back in 2018. So they have some new players and some new pieces, and Hisu and Alarm, a rookie. They've looked very, very good. And I think the question really comes down to, well, which team has been better? And that's who you pick. And that is the difficult question. Well, who has been better? My thing with the Fusion that has very much impressed me is, with the exception of the Paris Eternal, there is not a single team that I have said or thought to myself, the Fusion didn't look that good playing that team. Yes, they had that close series against the Reign, and they had a close series against the Defiant. I think they've had a rematch with the Defiant since then. I'm not positive, but I think they have. But when they had a rematch with the Reign, it wasn't a close series. Fusion dominated them at the second time around. And I think they've had another match against the Defiant that was a very one-sided affair. Maybe they haven't. I don't remember exactly. It's possible they haven't played the Defiant in a while. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. But I would expect them to dominate the Defiant because I think that they're that good. The Shock have been kind of up and down. They've been kind of iffy. They had some not so great results recently. Obviously, they just had a very major, huge win against the Atlanta Reign, which I think helps them going into this tournament. You can beat a team that a lot of people think is pretty good. They're 8 in the overall standings, 6 in the North America standings. That's a pretty good win, in terms of recent performances. Though I don't think the Reign have been particularly strong recently anyway. But the only time they've really been tested and challenged by a team who I think is somewhat good is the Fuel, when they had that 3-2 series. A team that the Fusion struggled a little bit with, but not as much as the Shock did. I think that this is a series that comes down to which team do I have more faith in based on their recent performances and how they've looked this season. I don't care about what the Shock did in 2019. The Shock had a historic season in 2019. I'm not going to take that away from them. This isn't 2019 anymore. Sinatra's gone. Architect is gone. You know, the meta is not Goats. It's not Doom Reaper. You know, you don't have the same heroes that, you know, Sinatra, who obviously not with the team anyway, but he could carry on some of these heroes and they really elevated the team. Striker and Rascal have been very, very good. Rascal's Echo is one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. I haven't seen enough carry out of them, right? I haven't seen them put this team on their backs and really, really carry in a way that I think we've seen with Carpe with the Fusion. I think Moth has been the big carry for the Shock this season. I think Moth has turned matches. I mean, he won them that match against the Defiant. Straight up. Like, he guaranteed that match did not go to 5 maps. So the Shock are a team who have not impressed me that much overall. I think they're a very good team. And it's difficult to pick against them because they have been good. They've won games, right? They haven't lost in a while. Though the Fusion have. It's been even longer since the Fusion lost. And I think that there's really a lot of people who don't believe in the Fusion, who are much more knowledgeable about things than I am, and who see the game differently than I do. And they see things in the Shock that I don't see. But I also hear people on the same note saying that the Shock haven't looked that good recently. And overall, I think the Fusion have been better. And I look at results, and I look at numbers, and I look at who they've played, how they won, their differential, and their record. And I'm overall more impressed by the Fusion. And maybe they haven't looked as good in May. They've also had a tougher schedule in May than the Shock did. You know, the Fusion had to play the Eternal. Shock played the Rain, who, you know, they're whatever. They're a good team, but struggling. They played the Outlaws, not a good team. They played the Defiant, who they didn't impress me against the Defiant. The Fusion, they looked good against the Eternal. They struggled a little bit when the Eternal started to, you know, turn things around a bit. The Fusion, they pulled it in the end. They pulled it away. Yeah, they played Vancouver. Not a great match. Not a great team. They played Dallas. Decently close series, but I thought the Fusion looked better against Dallas than I thought the Shock did. I think the Fusion win this one. I think it's a tough choice. I think it's tough to say either way, but I've been more impressed with the Fusion. I think right now they're the more solid team, and I think that they are the team that should win this tournament. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm known to be wrong many times with stuff like this. Tournaments, playoff predictions, I am awful at them because it's very hard to predict when you have good teams going up against each other. But I think the Fusion have been better. To me, the winner of this match solidifies themselves as a top team in North America, no questions asked. Right now, I think it's Philadelphia. I'm going to stick with my gut thinking it's Philadelphia. People are going to say I'm crazy. People are going to say I'm wrong, I'm sure. But that is the match that I think happens. I think it's a close one. I think it goes the distance, but I think the Fusion pull it out in the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, who you think is going to win this tournament. And, of course, tomorrow we'll talk about the Asia region and who I think will win that one. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. It does help out the channel a lot, and it makes me happy when I see people engaged and when people give me criticisms that are valid, or when people say they enjoyed the video. It makes me happy knowing that there are people who get a smile from something that I make, even if it's as dumb as what I do. So that's everything I have for you. Thank you once again. Hope you're all staying safe, hope you're all staying healthy and staying indoors, or at least following whatever procedures are now in place in your state or country or whatever. That's it. Thank you once again. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope you all have a great weekend watching some of these matches, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.